Good evening to you, everyone. I'm Tina Tyus Shaw, along with WSAV's Ben Singer, and we are proud to present to you the Georgia State House Political Forum, sponsored by WSAV News 3 on your side and our partner, Georgia Southern University. We've been doing this the last 2 weeks now, Ben, and definitely proud to sponsor these political forums.
We're making little upgrades in our visual presentation here as we go along, too, so we appreciate you bearing with us. Our focus tonight, 2 Georgia State House District races. You will learn about the candidates running for House Districts 164 and 166. So WSAV is live streaming this event via Zoom. It will be simulcast on WSAV.com and the WSAV Facebook page. So to our audiences, wherever you're watching tonight, we want to thank you for joining us.
Yes, so this first session tonight will feature the candidates for State House District 164. And the candidates are Republican incumbent Ron Stevens and Democrat Marcus Thompson. So we want to give you a rundown of the format for tonight. Each of the candidates will have an opening statement, and that statement will be for 2 minutes, and they will receive questions throughout the evening as this session progresses. And with the questions, they will have 90 seconds to answer those. And there will be a 20-second rebuttal if necessary. And toward the end, as we get closer to the closing statements, we will give the candidates 2 minutes for their closing statements.
Should we flip the coin to see who goes first?
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
let's do it.
that. Okay. Who do you want to be heads, Tina?
Okay, we'll have Ron Stevens heads and Marcus tails.
Okay. Oh, man. Now it's spinning. Man, that was terrible. We did a quarter last time, it's not my fault. It is heads. Heads is the winner today. So, that was Mr. Stevens, right?
Yes.
All right, welcome. You will go first with your opening statement. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm doing this from my car, and that's the miracle of Zoom anymore. I want to thank you for 23 years of allowing you to serve. We've accomplished some amazing stuff in our district. Stevens Day, they said it couldn't get done. It was nobody had ever done it before. Froze your property taxes here in Savannah, Chatham County. School board got a cost of living index. It was a very big deal. Now is in 70 taxing districts. I want to thank all the folks that have helped over this past year during the campaign. And of course, with as a pharmacist, you may know, I got the Bowl of Hygeia, which is given out nationally to the highest award you can give for a pharmacist, the Georgia Hospital Association, the Clean Water Society, which is the Sierra Club, the Ogeechee River Club. They gave me the award for some legislation, the Georgia Rural Health Champion, the Shooting Star Award, as you might know. I did the in 2008, whenever we were in trouble, I did the film tax credit, created tens of thousands of jobs in an $8 billion industry. And I can go on and on. It's just been an amazing 23 years. And I want to thank you for supporting me because I support you.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Thompson,
Mr. Thompson,
you are unmute.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, WSAV, for putting this on. This is an awesome stage for the voters and for us. I'm for better healthcare, better education, and better jobs with better pay. We live in one of the fastest growing districts in the state of Georgia. Pooler, Georgia alone is the fastest growing city in the state. A quarter century has passed since Representative Stevens has taken office, which in that time, a lot of things have changed. We need a new type of leadership, a new vision, a new perspective, one that will include not just the businesses of the state, but the people of the state as well. For years, we've been #1 in the nation for businesses. That is an amazing feat. It's time that we become #1 for healthcare, #1 for better education, #1 for the people. That's why I'm here. I will give every person a chance to put their own fingerprint on the future of this district. A vote for Marcus is a vote for all of us. Thank you, guys.
And thank you.
Thank you.
And now it is time for us to begin the question and answer session of tonight, and we will begin with Mr. Stevens, and this question is directed to actually both of you. But Mr. Stevens, I'd like for you to answer it first. In 2020, the Georgia legislature considered cutting the income tax rate from 5.75% to 5.5%. Now, in light of the budget shortfalls as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, should the state still consider an income tax cut? What options should the state consider to make up for a budget shortfall? Can you give us your insight on this question?
Certainly. Last year, as you know, for the first time in Georgia's history, we cut our income tax rate 10%. We expected to do that again this next year. Before COVID hit, we were expecting a slight recession. So the governor sent out a 4% budget cut across the board and asked his leaders, department heads, if you will, to send back budget cuts reflecting that. That took that off the table this year. It also took off the table the other $5,000 pay increase that we intended to give for teachers. Because we went back to work early this year, because we're back in full economy, because our numbers are coming back, whenever we go back in January, we're not looking at the draconian cuts. And in fact, we are looking, and we're already talking about the other income tax cut that will bring us down to 5.5%, make us very competitive. And of course, we're looking at the other teacher pay raise as well.
Thank you so much for your answer. And now, Mr. Thompson, what are your thoughts in regards to this question related to the budget shortfalls?
Well, I think that we definitely need to take a look at the budget tax cuts. I think more than anything, the pandemic has shown us that the people of this district, of this state, are the most important commodity that we have. We have taken $1 billion away from services and education. They took the brunt of it. I believe that we should definitely drill the fact that there were the $5,000 salary increase was taken away. I think that is something that we should absolutely put back in. And if we have to go into the tax cuts in order to do that, I believe that we absolutely should. It is, I believe the businesses can handle it. We've had a very good season for businesses outside of the pandemic, and inside the pandemic, we are still #1 for businesses in the nation. But it's really time to put our teachers first, our people first.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to question number 2 here. We are going to stay in the area of budget here. So passing the state budget is the only thing lawmakers are mandated to do every year. Which budget areas, such as healthcare, education, or law enforcement, are funding priorities for you? And this time we will start with Mr. Thompson.
I apologize. So my top priorities would definitely be healthcare and education. Healthcare, we are lagging behind in so many different areas as a state. We're #2 in terms of maternal mortality rate. That means that women are dying at some of the highest rates in Georgia as opposed to the rest of the nation. We're 46th in the nation in terms of access to preventative health care, treatment for mental health. It's been going on for quite some time. That is one of the first places that I would look in order to make a priority for the budget, as well as COVID-19 testing, contact trace testing, reporting accurate numbers for case positives. We have to look at not just the budget, but also the science to make sure that when we do have the money for this, for everything that we need, we'll know how best to use it as well. So education, we have, as Ron stated a couple of days ago, we fully funded the QBE, but the QBE is something that we've had in place since 1985. How much money is being wasted inside the QBE that could be given to something a little more, let's say, direct to the students, so that they can get a better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevens, same question to you. Funding priorities.
In the early 1980s, we came up with a formula across the state, and we've never been able to fully fund it until last year and the year before. We finally got to that number, and fully funding QBE is going to be a #1 priority, I think, for everybody that goes up there. When it comes to healthcare, we decided to take a route instead of expanding Medicaid, we wanted to more target those healthcare issues. For example, the maternal mortality and psychiatric care and mental health care and on and on and on. So we want to go back and we've already applied and we've got accepted a waiver from Medicaid, if you will, so that Georgia has the opportunity to speed up those funds, if you will, to our most needy areas. And those two are the two that come to most. And lastly, the one that comes to mind just right off the bat, last year we had a budget cut as a result of the mandates from the governor on our budget cuts coming down on our brand new Pooler Crime Lab. GBI took a cut, got to us, and we immediately put it back. So public safety ranks way up there with every one of the members. And I think you're going to see that a focus as we move into the next session.
Thank you very much. We'd like to move on to another topic at this time, and we're going to focus on the environment. We will begin with Mr. Thompson answering this question. Do you agree or disagree with the statement, stricter environmental laws and regulations meant to protect the Georgia coastline are worth potential costs to jobs or businesses?
I do support a stricter focus on protecting our coastlines. As a matter of fact, just recently, yesterday, there was a major obstacle was lifted for a mining company that wants to mine in the Okefenokee swamp for titanium. This is an example of how the Clean Water Act has been gutted, unfortunately, by on the national level and on the state level. Beforehand, all the waters in this swamp were protected until the rules were changed. And so if that opens the door for one company, it will open the door for another mining company and yet another one. And so when we think about what we're going to do to protect our coastlines, to protect or to plan for climate change, we have to take a look at everything that we're doing, including allowing people or allowing businesses into these protected areas just because the rules have changed. So yes, I would definitely support that.
And Mr. Stevens, what are your thoughts as well?
You know, I am the clean water champion. I got that award just 2 or 3 years ago. And there's several things that led to that. It's not just the Marshland Protection Act or or the Shoreline Protection Act, or the things that really matter whenever you become a senior member of the legislature. You take a chance on things that really mean something to my grandchildren and your grandchildren and future generations. As you might recall, we had a big stink with a pipeline coming through here, gasoline pipeline, not a natural gas. And there were several of us that took a stand on that. We passed a resolution, and I was awarded, of course, for notoriety there. Last year, or year before last, we had an issue that was stalled regarding our offshore drilling. I took a stand as the dean of the coastal delegation. That's all of the congressional 1st district, only because I'm old. I got all the signatures for all the members, and I finally got the rules chairman to allow the committee to hear and get it onto the House floor so that we could get this bill passed. Thank you, Carl Gilliard, for standing with us, and for every single member of the coastal delegation. There's a reason that you become leadership, and there's a reason you stand out front. My record on natural resources and the environment is second to none.
Thank you very much, both gentlemen. I appreciate your answers on that question.
We're going to switch gears here once again. This time we're going to talk about retirement homes, and this question will go to Mr. Stevens first. A recent investigation of assisted living homes in Georgia exposed hundreds of cases of neglect and abuse of seniors. Many other states have more aggressive oversight and stricter regulation of these facilities. So what do you believe Georgia should do to increase accountability at private facilities?
You know, that's one of the things, and unfortunately we've seen a lot of this with COVID. Trying to get folks to come in and try to take care of these folks. My mother-in-law is 97 and is in one of these facilities, and honestly, it's like she's been in prison now since since March because of, we can't go visit. We can only talk through a window. And I'm looking forward to us finally getting behind this. But that's a focus. And, kudos to the National Guard. They've been in all of these facilities, and thank you, Governor, for sending them in. They've been in every single one of these facilities multiple times, disinfecting these facilities to the point that nothing can live except a human, quite honestly. And that goes a long way. But oversight is a big deal, especially on the nursing home side, but on the assisted living side as well. It's something that oversight needs to happen. But I want to give kudos really to those folks that come in and protect the lives of my mother-in-law and others that are out there that are susceptible to this deadly virus.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
The first thing that we need to do is to touch base with the administrators at these retirement homes and assisted living facilities. More than anything, I don't know everything. And I think the first thing that we should do is to talk to them, maybe even form some sort of coalition to see how best we can service the elderly in our society, in our district. I find it sad that that Representative Stevens has to speak with his mother through a window because of COVID-19. This has been hardest on the elderly and the poor, quite frankly. But I think that if we work together across the aisle and with the people that actually know what's going on a daily basis, hourly basis, then I think that we can make things better.
Thank you. We want to move to education now. Of course, education is a huge topic here in the state of Georgia and, of course, right here at home in Savannah and around the coastal empire. Governor Brian Kemp's campaign pledged to raise teacher pay by $5,000. Right now, salaries have increased, but shortfalls due to COVID made it difficult to guarantee the full amount. Will you work to ensure that the Georgia legislature fulfills this promise? And what revenue sources can be used to fill the gap? Representative Stevens, we'll start with you.
Thank you. And as the governor has said, because we've come back to work in a responsible way, we've got our businesses back open, we're going to have a surplus this year. So I'm fully expecting that to be the first priority with the governor. And I want to support the governor whenever he fulfills his promise this next year, even in these bad COVID times, that we fulfill our promise to our teachers and we give them that $10,000 raise. That's just a big deal. It's something that we promised. We ought to keep it. And again, the other piece is going to be the tax cut. How do you do both? I think there's going to be revenue for both of them. And I don't believe, as some of our states are going to have a problem in making, you're limited to what you can spend to the revenue that you take in. You have to balance your budget according to our Constitution. Our state's going to be so much better off. Our unemployment rate is lower than the national average. I believe Georgia's doing things right. It's hard decisions to make, but we're going to keep our word to our teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, your thoughts?
My wife was a teacher for 10 years before she became an administrator. Even back then, they had to buy their own supplies. They had to buy sometimes their own toilet tissue and paper towels to take to school. Not much has changed since then, and that's an unfortunate thing. I would absolutely, with great vigor, push to have teachers' salaries increased as much as possible. They are the awakeners of our youth. They are the ones that pour themselves into them to make sure that they become productive citizens to society. They have to be a priority. And the best way I believe that we can actually fund that is to take a look at corporate partnerships and technical trade training programs that divert a larger portion of tax funding and expanding how we use our Georgia lottery funding system. I think that that's one way that we can do this. And also just touching base with teachers, administrators, and the Board of Education, which I hope to form a task force to do that because they know what will be best for them.
Thank you. We're going to stay with education here for just a moment. So earlier in the year, the Georgia Senate considered a bill that would create a school voucher program where tax dollars go to students who then can use the funds for private school tuition or other educational expenses like homeschooling. Supporters say this gives parents greater choice. Opponents argue that school vouchers take much needed funding from public schools. So what is your position on school vouchers, and would you support this legislation? And why don't we start with Mr. Thompson?
I support better education all the way around. I believe that if we can make the public school system a higher quality, if we can make the public school system high quality, then this will not be something that we have to really discuss. I think that vouchers I think they have their place, but I believe that since most of the students of the children in this district are going to have to go to public schools, then we must pour into the public school system in order to make that a priority. Make sure the teachers are getting paid what they should be getting paid, and make sure that students are getting all the supplies that they require. Not that teachers are out paying for PPE and their own supplies. So I would definitely I would be willing to look at it, but I would want to concentrate on making sure that we fund public education.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, same question about vouchers.
School choice. It's been an issue for the 23 years that I've been up there, and it's a tough one. I do support and have supported the Gold Scholarship Program, which is a tax credit system that allows you to give to a private school, quite honestly. But you know, to trap kids into a no-win situation in some parts of our state, and we're not here in coastal Georgia, is unconscionable to me. So yeah, I do support school choice, and I support the funds following the student.
Thank you. We will move on now to the next question, and this is related to our workforce. You know, everyone wants to do well, those who are able to hold down a job, and they want to make ends meet for their family. And a lot of people are having a difficult time in terms of those who work those minimum wage jobs. So let's focus on that. The minimum wage in Georgia is set at $5.15 an hour, while the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Employers not covered by fair labor standards, the act that can actually pay workers $5.15 an hour. So would you support an increase in Georgia's minimum wage? And the next part of this question, why or why not? And if you do support an increase, how much, in your opinion, is a reasonable increase? And Mr. Stevens, let's start with you. Yes. Jump in.
Sure. I do support following the federal minimum wage. I think it's fair. We've had a lot of folks that say we need to move to $15 an hour. Keep in mind that when you do that, and if there's an income tax rate of 50%, you're right back below the minimum wage now. The two people that hurt is small employers, large employers, any employers. And the other folks that hurt are the ones that want part-time work because there'll be none, and even some full-time workers. And you create a ceiling. So if you're doubling down on the income tax that you're going to have to pay, it makes no sense. And it's a treadmill, and all you're doing is giving it to the federal government. I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson, what are your thoughts when it comes to the workforce and minimum wage?
You know, I took as a class in Leadership Savannah, we took a poverty simulation through Step Up. That was eye-opening to me. I would absolutely support a minimum wage increase. I think that we should, if we just followed the past 10 years for cost of living increases, it should be around $12 right now. I would definitely support increasing the minimum wage to $9 and at least starting a gradual increase from there on up. But our minimum wage workers right now, they're having to make decisions whether or not they should buy gas or put food on the table or buy medication or buy clothes for their children. When you're bringing in $1,200 a month, what choices, how many choices do you really have? Which is another reason why I would actually push for every elected official to have to do a poverty simulation when they're elected into office. I think that is the only way that you can relate to the people that are working these jobs on a regular basis. It was eye-opening for me, and I think it would be the same way for others.
Thank you. All right, let's stay in the workforce sector here. We're going to talk about the Technology Innovation Corridor that's been established in Chatham, Effingham, and Bryan counties near I-95. It has the potential to usher in a whole new economy. So what can you do as a legislator to support this idea and bring new jobs? And we'll start with you, Mr. Thompson.
So I'm all about task force. I don't know, you guys might actually find a common theme here, but I would touch base with tech leaders. I would hopefully I would be able to attract some of them to come to the district, not just to look at us as a possibility, but to look at us as the only choice. I would love to sit down with any tech giant, any tech CEO. I would touch base with people that have connections with the World Trade Center, with CETA. I would do what I can to increase our chances of being a tech paradise. Let's just say that. But yes, I definitely would support tech in this area.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Stevens.
I'm glad you brought it up. It's we put that in last year. We're working through it. The one before that I carried was the intermodal corridor that, of course, fits right nicely in with our ports, and you need that kind of stuff. You know, the lieutenant governor has made that a priority for technology. He was a Georgia Tech graduate, and I appreciate that. I served with him in the House. By making our coastal Georgia a tech corridor, it refocuses all of our high-paying jobs back here on the coast, and that's where I want them.
Thank you very much. Now, this next question is one that's really tough for a lot of people to talk about, especially here in the Coastal Empire. We're talking homelessness. The Coastal Empire has seen a rise in homelessness and a lack of funding to keep people in their homes. So the question to you, gentlemen, is what affordable housing initiatives will you support if elected? And Mr. Thompson, we'll begin with you.
I would. So there are 35 tent cities in this city, in Savannah alone. I would support. There's a tiny house initiative that is already taking place. I think that if we could help fund initiatives like that, it would be incredibly beneficial for people that are down on their luck. I think that if we can have 4 or 5 tiny house neighborhoods in this area, or even touch base with Habitat for Humanity, make sure that we get people that that may not be able to make it through the next day financially, but we can help them out right now that can give them the first step up. I think that would be an awesome program. There are people that are doing it right now, and I've already been in communication with some of them, and I would like to continue that and make it even stronger.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, what are your thoughts in terms of improving the homeless situation here in the Coastal Empire, specifically in Savannah?
And I'm glad you brought it up. We're doing that. In fact, the referendum question that you've got on the ballot, that if you hadn't already voted, I hope you voted for it. That issue allows Habitat for Humanity, and the idea that we have a single veteran that's living on the street is repulsive to me, quite honestly, especially after they've served their country. So this initiative would give these authorities that are the ability not to pay property taxes while they're building the home, and if they're willing to sell the home to that veteran or the homeless person with zero interest, then we have said, and you'll decide on this ballot question, if while they're building these Habitat homes or these small homes, that they be exempt from property taxes. I think they should, and I voted for it, and I hope you will too.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move on to marijuana. The question is, do you support the legalization of recreational or medicinal marijuana in Georgia? Why or why not? And we will start with you, Mr. Stevens.
I was the co-sponsor of the medical marijuana pieces that's come along. And we found through the years, you know, for those folks back in the Vietnam era, whenever they served in Vietnam, that was the recreational drug of choice, it seems like there. But we're finding out now that all the cannabinoids, the CBD, the CBH, even THC, all have some type of effect on dementia, especially when it comes to Alzheimer's disease with the protein that's in the brain. So there's research going on right now. So the fact that as a pharmacist, I've got nothing in my pharmacy that can stop epileptic seizures for these kids that have no other choice except to go out of our state and get this product, these small THC drugs, and give to these folks that will give these kids some relief, which is why I co-sponsored the bill. It's passed twice, and I think you'll continue to see additional medical uses that are attached. There's 5 right now, pain being at the top and sleep being another, that you can use all of these cannabinoids for, and each one having a different effect. And you're going to see more and more research. Some of this could be groundbreaking stuff.
Mr. Stevens, thank you. Mr. Thompson, supporting or not supporting recreational or medicinal marijuana?
I would definitely support the medicinal marijuana in this state and legalizing marijuana. Just last week, I spoke with a voter. She was very, very impassioned because she had an illness that caused her so much pain from time to time that she would forget her own name. Now, she needs medicinal marijuana, and she should not have to travel out of the city, out of the state to go get it. But it's made difficult for dispensaries to even be established in highly populated areas. We've got to stop that. And so people with fibromyalgia, for instance, people with Stevens-Johnson syndrome, like myself, these are herbs that will help make the life, increase the benefit of life, increase your life stance until, I don't really believe in a lot of medications. I will just say that, but I think that I would definitely support this as moving forward.
Thank you.
Now let's talk health care. More than 400,000 Georgians do not qualify for Medicaid, and they fall into the Medicaid coverage gap. Governor Brian Kemp has proposed a partial Medicaid expansion to aid families up to 100% of the poverty line. Do you support the governor's plan? If yes, do you support an even greater expansion of Medicaid? Mr. Stevens, we will begin with you.
23 years, every single year that I've been there, we go up and put sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to backfill Medicaid. So in my mind, we've been expanding Medicaid every single year. It's a growing program. As you might recall, just a few years ago, one of my good friends, Mickey Chanel, we stepped out in a different direction, decided to do the S-CHIP program, which is a type of Medicaid program that's a 70-30 split from the federal government down. But it's an insurance program that allows low-income folks the opportunity to buy into an insurance plan, and we call it Peach Care, through several different providers to get these kids that wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to get health care. We're beginning to do a targeted program now that we've got approval to go after these things like maternal mortality and all of these psychiatric care, mental health care, and on and on and on. Instead of throwing a large amount of money, if you will, at a failing system that continues to explode at the taxpayer's expense, I prefer, and I think the governor prefers, a targeted approach for things that are different in Georgia than they are in other places, so that we can spend the resources from Medicaid specifically on those things instead of throwing it after a program that's growing in number and really a failing system.
All right, Mr. Stevens, thank you. And Mr. Thompson, what are your thoughts?
I would not support Governor Kemp's healthcare plan in its present form. I believe that it is going to, and it's not that I believe, it's a fact, it's going to block people from the ACA. It's almost specifically designed to do that, thus taking Georgians away from their health care. This is something that we can't even really have a conversation about this because we're so low in terms of our health care as a state. This is something that we need to focus wholly on. We need to make sure that more Georgians have access to quality preventative health care and not less. Thousands of Georgians may lose more health care than they may gain from this plan. Now, Medicaid needs to be expanded, period, point blank. It needs to go out to 12 months, especially for maternal mortality rate. If that happens, we can keep almost 61% of the people that lose their lives giving birth in this state alive. That is, without question, the best thing that we can do.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question, still in healthcare. In 2019, the Georgia legislature passed a bill that outlawed abortion once a doctor can detect fetal cardiac activity. While this law makes its way through the courts, what is your opinion on the state's role related to regulating abortions? And Mr. Thompson, we'll start with you.
I think that the heartbeat bill was one of the most restrictive woman's choice laws in the entire nation. I believe that as a father of a daughter who is very opinionated, very in tune with making the best decisions, as well as me in tune with trying to help her learn how to make the best decisions. And those best decisions lie in their hands. I think that the state should not be so restrictive. I think that women are by far the best people to make decisions about their own bodies, about their health care, about what is going to make their life better, about what's going to make their families better. And I think that the heartbeat bill was very restrictive, and I hope that we can do better in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, your opinion on the state's role related to regulating abortions.
You know, we made that decision already. It was passed, and it's in the court system now. So all of this discussion now won't affect the legislature at all. It's going to be a decision the courts make. And of course, I didn't vote for the bill. And the reason was I was holding my daughter's hand at the time as she was on life support in Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. And I hope nobody has to go through that again. But so to be perfectly clear, I am pro-life, except for in cases of rape and incest, and the viability of the mother and the viability of the fetus. So in those cases, outside of those cases, I do not believe in abortion on demand. I believe that life is precious, and we should save it. But as far as our role, the General Assembly, we're out of that conversation now. It's in the courts.
Thank you. Let's move on now and talk about an election-related issue. And this question is directed to both of you. Chatham County is one of a minority of counties in Georgia that has not merged its elections and registrar's offices. With increasing voter turnout, absentee ballots, and concerns of election integrity, how could voting be improved in your minds for voters in your district? Should the Chatham County Registrars and Elections Department merge, which would require action by the state legislature, be merged? And Mr. Stevens, let's begin with you on this question.
Sure. We tried this. Unfortunately, Chatham County is one of the few. We tried this a few years ago whenever Congressman Carter was then serving in the Georgia Senate. And we had such a turf battle that it was just impossible to come to a consensus. It requires 4 of us in the House for the local delegation to vote for it, and it requires both senators. There was so much pushback from both sides, but I think both sides agree now that it's coming. It'll probably be the first bill that we introduce. I think you've got bipartisan agreement on both sides that it's time to for the overlap and quite honestly the turf battles to be over with and put the Georgia voter first. And it'll be the first one that we do as a local bill, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Thompson, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely agree that the BOE and the BOR absolutely need to be merged. Voter suppression is real, and it's only exacerbated when there's confusion in the process. And this is the definition of confusion for voters. They don't know, they don't really know that there is a board of registrars. And then when they do figure it out, not everybody knows what they are responsible for. The fact that they're responsible for early voting, but the BOE is responsible for election day voting, and they're responsible for the absentee ballot. It's too much. Voting should be simplified so that everybody would want to put their vote in and make sure that it would be counted. And so I would absolutely be in favor of merging the BOR and the BOE. I think that most of Chatham County would agree.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, it is that time to wrap things up. So we're going to go to closing statements now, and we will start with you, Mr. Thompson. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you all for this platform, and thank you, Ron, for being here as well. Make no mistake, this election is a referendum on the current Georgia leadership in this state. Do you think the current leadership represents you and your best interest? Did the state leadership respond well to coronavirus? My opponent just 2 days ago called our response an excellent job. Do you think so? Do we have the best public school system in the country? Not even close. Do we have the best healthcare in the country? We're close to the bottom. Do we listen to the science and plan climate change and sea level rise? No, they don't. Are we known for having world-class voter suppression tactics? Yes, we are. Did the current leadership pass HB 481, the most restrictive women's choice laws in the country? Yes, they did. Did the current leadership put business interests before the opinion and before the advice of the best public health officials in the world? Yes, they did. And did it take the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, for the hate crimes bill to pass? Yes, it did. There are a lot of things to love about Georgia, but the current leadership is not one of them. We need new leadership, and that's why I'm here. A vote for Marcus is a vote for all of us, and I'm here asking for your vote. Thank you again, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, 2 minutes to you.
Thank you. First of all, I apologize for the darkness of the screen. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this debate, if you will, and it's very important for folks to know where people are on all the issues. It is about being effective, and because I've got the gray hair and the experience here, I'm probably one of 6 or 8 people out of 180 in the House that have influence. Whenever you're looking at the budget, they kind of look to me. Whenever they look to the cities, the counties, and things that really mean something, they look to me. Whenever they look to taxes, they look to me, and education, and on and on. But there are differences. I do believe that whenever as being a primary co-sponsor, not just a co-sponsor, but a primary co-sponsor, to get the hate crimes legislation passed was a very, very big deal. People of color, people, sexual orientation, gender, all of these things was a groundbreaking legislation. It's time that we consider the other piece of hate crimes legislation that passed right on its heels, and that's to protect our first responders, our police officers, our firefighters, our EMTs, and make no mistake, they're folks going after them only because of the uniform they wear. Ladies and gentlemen, I got you back. I got you back. Whenever they come to budget cuts, defunding police, it ain't gonna happen on my watch. Thank you for my grandchildren giving me the opportunity to create a beautiful state, a beautiful coast for our grandchildren. and for an education system they can survive and thrive on. Before COVID got here, historically, we'd had an unemployment problem. We were basically the best we've ever been in Georgia. Historically, Black and Hispanic workers, unemployment was almost non-existent, the best in history in Georgia, and even in our country. I want to get back to the full employment, the robust economy that we've got, the thousands of jobs that Gulfstream's created by leveling the playing field, the historic tax credit, and thank you for the opportunity of 23 years, and I appreciate your vote. I'm Ron Stevens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both gentlemen for joining us tonight. And I just want to remind you, this forum is sponsored by WSAV TV, WSAV on your side, and Georgia Southern University. We will take a break right now, and to our audience, we want you to stick around because we do have another session coming up with those running in House District 166. We'll take a quick break and we will be back shortly. Stay with us, everyone.